clicked on the thumbnail because you're like, that's a lot of random things going on. Yeah, my son is the one who's autistic, and I had him tested in October, and we got the results back a couple weeks later, and the doctor said that it's all things that are social, except for like some noise and texture issues, but they're all things that with therapy he should be able to integrate into regular school and not have to have a lot of special like classes or like a person with him or be in the special ed class. He should be able to just go into regular classes, and there are things that with time he'll learn how to adapt and he should be okay. So they have a scale of 0 to 100, and 60 is autistic, and he scored a 65. So it's very, very mild. And being social things, it's something that he can learn. So it made me feel like, okay, I did see what I saw. I'm not kind of crazy. And there are things that we can help him with. So it's not like because we're older parents, so it's a little concerning for me. It's like, oh, when he's in his 20s, we could be gone by then. And, is he going to be okay without us? But he should be. So that was kind of my like, all right, I don't have to worry about him when we're gone. Like, I mean, I can't worry about anybody when I'm gone because I'm not here, but worrying about what's going to happen when I'm gone. And on the 19th of this month, it's December now, he has to be tested through the school system to find out where they're going to place him. The Atlanta Autism Center is separate from the school district. So the doctor there said, you just have to go and sign him up, and then hopefully they can get him in the pre-K program. So he has to be evaluated again. And we did start like a Gymboree Mommy and Me thing through the school system called Sparks, something like that. I was talking to the teacher of that, and she was like, oh, I don't think they're going to put him into that class because he's so mild. And the class is typically for people with more severe autism and like who are like nonverbal or they're more on the violent side. And he's pretty laid back kid. He's not violent. He has his moments when he's like, oh, he thinks it's funny. He's like, I'm going to kick mommy. It's like, that's not funny. But for the most part, he doesn't go around aggressively hurting other kids. So we'll see how things go. So with him, I'm feeling a little calmer and like, okay, he's going to be all right. And that's okay. And then I had hemorrhoid surgery the week before Thanksgiving. And the Friday after, so the day after Thanksgiving, I went to get into bed and I realized I forgot something. When I sat up, I twisted in kind of a weird way and I had one leg on the ground still. I felt something and it hurt, and I was like, oh, what did I just do? But I didn't think anything of it because the pain kind of went away. Then the next day, the next evening, almost 24 hours later, we had friends visiting for Thanksgiving, and they were giving their son a bath in our like main bathroom. And between the bathroom and our room is the laundry room. And my husband and son were in our bathroom, and my husband was giving our son a bath. So I was in the laundry room pulling things out, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom because it kind of felt like gassy. But then I was like, no, that's not gas. And our door was closed. If it wasn't closed, I probably still wouldn't have made it. But I was like carrying the basket and I just dropped it and like grabbed the door and pushed it open, and it just came out. And my husband was like, he saw me and I'm like, it's not a fart. It's not a fart. I'm running. And he's just like, oh, that looks bad. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to throw my, pajamas away. I'm like, don't worry. I thought it was not, I thought it was number 2. So when I sat down, I was like, oh, that's not number 2. It was blood and a lot of it. And there was a big clot, like probably about that big. It was like, oh, that's not normal. So I ended up, I showered, I rinsed off because, it was very messy. I put some clean clothes on. And then I told my husband, I was like, our friends are here. Can we just ask him to watch Nicola for like 10 minutes? Because we live pretty close to the ER. And I was like, just take me to the ER. And I knew he wasn't going to stay. It's like, they allow one visitor now, but typically, it's like, just go home and be with our son. So he dropped me off and I went in and I talked to them. And I was feeling a little dizzy because I did lose a little bit of blood, and I wasn't feeling all that great to begin with. And they did a CT and they said that it looks like I probably just popped a suture because they didn't see anything like gushing blood into the area. And the doctor was like, you're probably going to have that same thing happen 2 or 3 more times. I'm like, great. The other 2 times, at least, I had a little more warning and I was able to get to the bathroom before it just came out on its own because that's not fun. I spent a couple hours in the ER and then I had my husband come get me and our friends, like our son was asleep at that point. So our friends were in the house. So we were like confident just leaving him in the bedroom for a few minutes. I'm okay, but I still have to be a little careful and I'm using a lot of Benefiber in my food to make it mushy. So I don't have to push real hard when it comes out. It's like soft serve ice cream. It's just kind of smushy. Yeah, I know. TMI. I'm always TMI. I should rename my channel Marie's TMI because every time I make a video, it's like TMI. So now with the cancer thing, um, we haven't really said a whole lot about that because of everything that's happened. So my husband does have kidney cancer. So we found out around the beginning of October, but it took weeks to get all the scans and different testing done. And when we finally saw the doctor that's kind of like the one that's going to take over and he specializes in kidney cancer, um, he had his CT and he had a CT on his chest, MRI on his head and his pelvis and his abdomen. And once he had all of those, we finally saw the point doctor on everything. And he was like, okay, I'm going to send you to the surgeon because you're going to have your kidney removed. And you can discuss whether or not you're going to do that first or you're going to do the immunotherapy first. And so my husband was like, well, I'd rather remove the kidney. And I agree, like, it makes more sense to remove the cause of the cancer than to try and treat it and then have to remove that organ anyway because it could spread if the treatment's not working. But if you remove it, you remove the source and the rest of it should not, like, the rest of it might grow on its own, but it's not going to you're not going to find more tumors popping up. The way we found out was back at the beginning of the year on his right flank, which is kind of the love handle area, but towards the back, he had a little bump. And he's pretty thin. So he does have kind of a love handle area, but it's very symmetrical. And again, he's kind of slim. So it's like you don't really see big like love handles. But when when you mentioned that, I noticed it was a little bigger and kind of like you could see kind of a bump there. And he went to his doctor who told him it was a lipoma. And he was like, well, I'd like to have it removed. And the doctor was like, yeah, okay, I'll find you a surgeon. And he's like, don't worry too much about it. Lipomas, they can be there for years and they don't do anything because they're just a fatty growth. So the surgeon that he referred him to doesn't do that anymore. And then he found another surgeon and he's like, okay, that one doesn't do it either. I told him, I'm like, well, let me Google who does that. And it said dermatologist. And I was like, oh, I have a dermatologist. Let me send you to her. She saw him and she was like, oh, it's too big. Because by that point, it was a little bigger than what it had originally looked like when he went to his primary care doctor. Dermatologist was like, let me find you a surgeon that can remove that. And my husband kind of laughed. He's like, the regular doctor couldn't find one. That's why I came here. She's like, well, it's a little too big for me to just remove. And it's not like she does like a little lipo needle in the office or something like that. So then we went to Canada. And when we got back, it had grown a lot in that time. And it had actually discolored. So it was probably about that tall. And it was still skin colored, but it was like brown. And it just kind of looked almost like a light bruise. And I was like, that doesn't look like any of the photos that I saw lipomas on Google. Like, Google's not 100%. It's not a doctor, but typically you can find a lot of information. And I was like, all right, let me Google again what type of doctor can remove this, since when we gotten back, he tried contacting the dermatologist and she didn't get back to him. So then it said plastic surgeons can remove it. And I was like, oh, the guy that did my breast reduction. So I called his office and the lady was like, okay, hold on a second. She talked to him real quick and he said to send some photos. So I immediately took a bunch of pictures and I emailed him. And within like 5 minutes, she was calling back saying he wants to see him. We'll make an appointment. And within a few days, he had an appointment. And he's like, yeah, I can do that. And then like 2 weeks later, they called him and like, you're having surgery, on this day, blah, blah, blah. So it was like, great. rolling along really well. We were kind of happy, and we didn't expect anything besides him just doing a little lipo, sucking that little fat thing out. Well, the doctor knew, and he didn't tell us until after, that it wasn't a lipoma because it was hard and discolored. And that's typically not a sign of lymphoma. Lymphomas are just skin colored. So I'll put a couple pictures that I took and that I sent to the doctor of the area. And um, so he removed it. So he ended up making a pretty big incision because it was a tumor. So he needed to remove all of it and everything. And after the surgery, he called me and he was like, it's a tumor. And I sent it to pathology. I'm like, all right, no problem. I didn't think anything of it. His dad had a tumor that was benign on his leg years ago. And tumors don't always mean cancer. So I was like, all right, whatever. We just waited. My husband was feeling better. He was happy that the thing was gone. And um, so that was beginning of October. So now it's beginning of November. So it's been 2 months since he had the surgery, roughly. And the there's a small scar, like you can see, really, really faint. But the whole area, the swelling is gone and everything from when he had the surgery. And it like matches now. His sides are symmetrical, but there is like a small incision there. And so the day before his follow up, like the 1 week follow up, the doctor called and told my husband that there were kidney cells in his tumor. So he sent him a referral to a doctor and they will be contacting him. And he's like, I wanted to call you before I see you tomorrow because they might call you later today. And I don't want you being confused as to why they're calling. And I sent the referral for the MRIs in. And he sent it to Emory. Emory is a teaching college in the area, and they have dozens of hospitals in the area. So they're a pretty big healthcare system in the area. And I go to them myself, so I do like them. And they're the closest hospital as well, which is really nice. And they have a nice computerized system. So typically, when you're working with doctors in their system, there's an app and you can see everything. So it's very streamlined unless you're working with doctors that aren't in the system. So that kind of makes it harder. But this doctor is not part of their system, but he does use their hospital for surgeries, and that's where my husband had his. So he's able to like log in and see progress and things. And um, the next day we went and saw him, and he's like, this is kidney cancer, so you're gonna have to have, probably surgery and do some immunotherapy. He's like, probably not chemo because this, the type of cancer this is, they try to do immunotherapy instead. And he's like, but I'm going to let the expert doctor talk about that. And so it was like, okay. So Emory called later the day that we saw the plastic surgeon for the follow-up, and they didn't have an MRI appointment until like right before Christmas. And I was like, no way, that's way too long to wait to find out what's going on with your cancer. Like, is it cancer? Is it just a tumor, like a random, like how bad is it? And I have had a few MRIs for different things and CTs. And there's an imaging place that's like behind our grocery store. So I told my husband to call them, and I was like, you'll get in there so much faster. So he did that. And then within like 2 weeks, he had the schedule, he had all of them done. And then we went and saw the doctor, the one that the plastic surgeon referred us to, and he added a couple more CTs and MRIs on there. So then we had to wait another 2 weeks and then get the appointment with the other doctor that we had eventually saw. And it was just like, oh. So it's just been kind of, it was right before Thanksgiving when we really found out what was going on. It just took forever. When you have cancer or your loved one has cancer, you just want to know right away how bad it is. And the fact that it took so long was really stressful for us. I was just like, I just want to know how bad it is. Like, is it terminal and stuff? Because when I did Google, I shouldn't have, but I did. And because the tumor that he had on his right flank was above the muscle, it wasn't connected to his actual kidney. So that means it's metastasized. And typically when things metastasize, they consider it stage 4. So that's scary. But when we saw the doctor that's now the head of everything that's going on, he said he doesn't like to label them because even though it's stage 4, that the biggest tumor, aside from his left kidney having a tumor on it, was the one on his right flank. And then in his chest, he has one in each lung and then two in his lymph nodes, kind of in the middle of his chest. He said those are so small, they probably started growing this year. So it's that one that he had removed already that was the biggest one. And um, so even though it's stage 4, having that big one removed and then the other ones are so small that he's like early stage 4, so it's not as like severe, and he has a really good chance compared to people who have tons of tumors all over through their body. And he's like, we do have to remove your kidney. So like a few days later, we saw the surgeon and he's like, I want to remove your kidney as soon as possible. And my husband was like, great, that's what we wanted too. So he's like, once we do that, then you're going to go back to the other doctor and you're going to start the immunotherapy. And the other doctor, the one that's on point, he told us that they do have a trial going on. And I was like, because sometimes, they're, for certain things, it's like, okay, join a trial. But for cancer, you're just like, it seems a little scary. But he explained it to us. And he said, it's not a blind trial and it's not a placebo trial. He's like, placebo will be unethical because you're coming here for treatment, and to give you, sugar water, it's not going to do anything, and that's just totally unethical. So he's like, you either get the medication that we would normally prescribe you, or you're going to get like their super version, which is whatever the trial is trying to see if it works. And he's like, we won't know until you actually join which one you're getting, but we'll keep a closer eye on you. The trial will pay for everything. And then if you're getting like the super version and things don't work, and your tumors aren't getting smaller or they're growing, then they remove you from that and they put you on the one that they would normally have given you that's been proven to work anyway. And I was like, okay, that sounds pretty good, because it's not like he's going to get a placebo at all. And if it's not working, they're not going to force him to continue. So that just kind of was like, oh, okay. So I personally feel like a little more relaxed and calm about what's going on. And I'm not so scared, because I was like, oh my God, it's stage 4. He's going to live a few more years and then that's it. Because if you read about it, it's like people with stage 4 have a 15% chance of living 5 years. And I was just like, I can't be without him. We have a 3-year-old, and just, I don't want to be without my husband. I'm going to cry now. I was trying not to cry, but I was 35 when I met him, and my friends used to call me douche magnet. So it's like I finally found a really nice guy, and we get along so well. And it's like I've been in this little happy bubble since I met him, and I don't want that to go away. We've been together 11 years, and it's like I expected us to be like 80 something together, not in my 40s and he's in his early 50s and things are ending like this. So I'm just like, okay, I'm happier now that I know that he should be okay. I mean, it's not guaranteed, but things should work out in the end. And then yesterday was our wedding anniversary, and he got laid off from work. And it was like, what? So in the morning, he told his boss what was going on, and his boss was like, tell the producer, because they have kind of weird titles. So there's managers, and like, but they're called producers. There's kind of like the VP of the studio where he works. And so he told the VP guy, because he's known him the longest, and that's the person in charge of everybody. And he was like, okay, no problem. We'll make sure that you're not working on anything critical, and take your time, because he's having surgery next week. So he was going to take the week of Christmas and the week of New Year's, and they typically close the last week of the year anyway. So he was like, just go ahead and take that time off, and we'll make sure you're okay. And then, because it takes about 6 weeks to recover, but at least the first week after the surgery, he has to spend a few days in the hospital, like 3 to 5. It depends on how he's doing. And then after that, it would be um, kind of Christmas and New Year's and everything. So he was just like, I'm just going to take the rest of the month off with vacation and sick days. But later that day, he got an email and he comes out and he's like, I think I just got laid off. And I was like, what? And he's like, I think I was just laid off. And he was just like in such shock. And he's like, come here, read the email. So I'm there reading it. And one of his friends that he works with was messaging him. And he had gone to the bathroom while I was reading the email. So I messaged him back. I'm like, hey, it's Marie. I'm just reading the email. I'm like, what the F is going on? Or I said, OS. I don't want to say those words because they're adult words. We're all adults. But sometimes, kids can watch and I don't think they would because I'm not fun, but whatever. Anyway, so then all of a sudden he didn't answer and I was just reading the email. I'm like, wow, they just closed the entire studio. So it wasn't just him. Because at first, my first thought was they can't do that. You just told them you have cancer and that's kind of illegal to fire somebody or lay them off or whatever when they're sick like that. But it was something that was obviously had been planned and in the works for a while. It wasn't, oh, well, you're sick, we're firing you, because it was a mass email to the entire studio. And the reason his friend didn't message back was because they just cut off everybody's communication. Nobody was allowed to message each other. And he had the manager, the producer's guy's phone number. So he called him and he talked to him. And that guy got HR to unblock him for a few minutes. They had a new meeting for everybody who had missed the meeting earlier in the day. And so he got to hear what was going on and was like, okay, that, it's not just me or like a couple people. Then they were like, we're going to send you an email to your personal email. And he was like, what email do they have? Because he changed his email after we got married. A couple years after, I was like, you really should have an email with your actual name instead of your fun Hotmail account. It's, people don't really use Hotmail anymore. And he was just like, all right. So he had never updated his email with them. So he did. And they sent him the email and it explained what was like the process and stuff. So he does at least get a severance, but it's still it's horrible timing. It's like we're already stressed out about his surgery and the cancer, and we have a 3-year-old and we have a house, and it's just like, oh. So I think he's a little calmer today knowing that he does at least get a severance and he has some time to find a job, and it's like he can heal and recover. And they did mention the COBRA thing, so hopefully we can continue our insurance until he does find another job. And I was going to be looking for a job, but then with all of his cancer things, and we don't know what the schedule for the I can't say that word, immunotherapy is going to be. I was kind of like, I'll start looking January when he's, kind of middle of January once he's recovered and I'm not worried about like having to take care of him or whatever. And now it's like, we don't know if we're going to stay here. Maybe we're going to have to move because he gets a job somewhere else. And it's like, so trying not to be too stressed, but it has been really stressful. And I went to see my psychiatrist earlier today and she changed my meds a little bit because I was like, I've been really stressed out and I'm not sleeping so well. I'm having a hard time falling asleep, and I wear the CPAP machine. So once I actually fall asleep, I don't know if I mentioned that. I do have a CPAP machine now. And once I start using it, I do stay asleep for the majority of the night. Every once in a while I'll wake up because I have to pee, or just kind of wake up and like I'll just move or something and then I go back to sleep right away. But if I don't wear it, I get up like 3 or 4 times to pee. It's kind of annoying. So I do try to wear it every night, and I notice that I sleep less. I'll sleep 8 hours instead of 10. And when I wake up, my whole body isn't achy. I feel pretty good. So I do try to do that, and it's been helpful, but I'm still stressed. And so my psychiatrist is like, okay, we're going to change your meds a little bit and bump up one of them. I'll add something else because you can't really bump up one of them too much. But she's like, if I add this other thing, you can use it. It's like she's like, it's an allergy medicine, but it'll help you sleep as well. And I'm like, okay, I've never heard of that, but you know, she's just like, we'll try that, and it's a as needed thing. So I'm like, all right, and hopefully next year, in the next couple weeks, things will be better and I won't be so stressed out. But so it's very unexpected, but I think we're gonna be okay. And yeah, so that's all my drama that's been going on, and it's it's kind of frustrating because I try not to be a drama queen, but I'm like, it's life. Life is happening right now, and I'm the drama queen right now. So, um, I'm gonna try to make another video later this month, hopefully after Patrick's surgery and things go better. So I hope you guys have good holidays, whatever you celebrate, and I will see you soon.